कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन
what we call the invocation. And in these prayers, we pray for the mercy of Guru, the spiritual teacher, who opens our eyes to this knowledge. Like if you go into a dark room, you don't know what anything is. You can't see anything. But if somebody flips on the lights, all of a sudden everything becomes very visible and very understandable. So like that, we are roaming through this world, not sure, where am I going in this life? What is my goal? What is my purpose? Who am I? Where did I come from? And so the spiritual master opens our eyes to this knowledge of who am I? Where am I going? How do I get to the best of destinations available? And it answers all of our different questions. So in the invocation, we make a prayer to a line of teachers and beg for their mercy so that we may realize and understand the knowledge that's presented within here, the Bhagavad Gita, and all of our different studies. So we'll just chant it together, and you can hear along, try as best you can, no problem. There's no concerns about mispronunciations or it doesn't matter. Just what the Lord always cares about, what's in the heart and what we're trying. Okay? We'll chant it a little bit slower today. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Yarati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Varevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasali Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to tonight's study. So just read the translation of the first verse we read. It's always nice. The Sanskrit is beautiful and very rhythmic. It's also equally important, or sometimes even more important, to also know what is it that we're speaking. Otherwise, it's just rituals. So, the first verse we read said, I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita that in order to really extract the nectar of this Bhagavad Gita, we must approach it with the right mood. Just like if a student goes into the classroom, and if the student's mood in the classroom is, I don't want to learn, then what's going to happen in the classroom? It's not going to learn, right? It's the knowledge that the teacher is presenting is not going to be absorbed. It's not a flaw in the knowledge being presented. It's a flaw in the mood of the recipient. So, Srila Prabhupada guides us into introduction to really absorb this extraordinary wisdom that Krishna is explaining in this Bhagavad Gita. It says that we should approach it in the mood of devotion, in the spirit of humility. So, devotion means love. And so, when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we read it in the mood of understanding, yes, I was born in the darkest of ignorance. I know. But by the mercy of Lord Krishna and by the mercy of Guru Prabhupada, I am being awakened to this wonderful knowledge. And like anything we get from someone, we should express gratitude. Right? So that was an opportunity for us to express our gratitude as well as our understanding of that. So we'll discuss today reading from page 538. This is the 13th chapter, and verses 8 through 12. Yeah. Someone would like to read the verse? Just a translation.
I'd be happy to read, but I cannot see because I thought I had glasses on my
No
head and they're
problem.
sunglasses. I'm so sad.
Humility, pridelessness, non-allowance, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of evil, of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest. Even mindless amid pleasant and unpleasant events. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical research for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance.
So, this verse is quite long. These are 5 verses combined together. So we've been discussing the different aspects of acquiring knowledge. So we are in the mode of acquiring knowledge here. And so we've discussed so far humility, pridelessness, and we discussed that humility is the understanding that I am ultimately part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but that I don't have full control of my situation, that I am dependent. We strive for independence always, right? That's but in reality, we see in all aspects of our life, we have dependence on other things, other factors in our life for our experience and existence. Because if we were truly independent, would we ever fail? No. Why would we ever fail? Right? If we had full control, I'd make myself never fail. But in fact, we do. We know that. get sick, there are setbacks. Well, that's because there are other factors that impact our experience in this world. So humility means to recognize that fact, that ultimately we are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Every breath we take, where is that air coming from? We can say nature. We can say the plants and trees who are processing our carbon dioxide and emitting oxygen. So we can say all of that is factual. But then even the concept of oxygen entering into the body and how that oxygen is absorbed into the bloodstream. Some machine is seated within here that is able to extract that and then fuel the body to do so many things. But who has made all this? Who is the supreme engineering mind that has figured out this very complicated yet perfect system? Right? We go about all day, every day, breathing thousands of breaths and we don't even think about it. But there is someone who has provided all of that to us, and that is the Supreme Lord. So humility doesn't mean, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, low self-esteem. No, that's not humility. Humility means, oh, I may have some abilities, I may have some capabilities, but they are given and facilitated by my most loving Supreme Lord. And so having an accurate understanding of who we are. Not to have a depressed understanding, but not to have also an inflated understanding. To have it accurate. That is, in essence, humility. So we talked a little bit last time about non-violence. Right? What does non-violence mean? According to this chapter.
Not giving distress to others.
Not giving distress to others. Right? How much violence do we see around us? Unfortunately, a lot. So the meaning of non-violence is that one does not give distress to others. I mean, we don't just give distress to our friends and family. Everyone. Even our neighbors. Yeah, everyone, right? We are not letting our actions give distress to others. But it extends even beyond our human interaction, does it not? Non-violence means we don't also give distress to the animals, to the plants and trees. Because ultimately, they're all living entities who have the same relationship with the Supreme Lord that I have, that you have. So out of respect to all, one practices non-violence by not giving distress to others. Can we imagine a world in which everyone lived by this principle? How beautiful it would be. Would we need a fancy lock on our doors? Would we need to have the 911 services of protecting me? If everyone was nonviolent to each other, what a harmonious place the world would be. These qualities of knowledge actually, they actually reflect our original being. The spirit soul, in its pure state, is naturally kind and loving to all living entities. But it is only due to the accumulation of impurities that our consciousness starts to change. Just like a child. A child is born not with any bad habits, but then the bad habits are acquired in time, in interaction with the world around it, right? And those evolve, and sometimes they get better and worse. That's nature. So like that, our natural, original state is of this type of nature, pure, free of any kind of non-violence. And that is the environment in the spiritual world. It's a place of peace. There is no animosity. There's no shortage. There's abundance of everything. There's no need to quibble. There's no sense of pride, me versus you. There's no, everybody has, again, humility, privacy. It's a very beautiful place. But it's not a place of geography, it's a place in the heart. That characteristics and these qualities, they manifest by the practice of spiritual life, by practicing bhakti. These qualities naturally emerge. We don't have to go find them somewhere else. We don't need to find them in some self-help book or some seminar. No, they're actually the innate qualities of each of us. And they come out through the practice of bhakti. And most powerfully, by chanting the holy names. When we chant these holy names, we cleanse whatever impurities we may have. It is like the most powerful soap agent that can remove the deepest and deepest of impurities from the heart by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And thus you see Srila Prabhupada emphasizing in these purports, chant, chant, chant. We may not understand all of this, we may not have this, by chanting, the natural characteristic of the soul emerges, and it is full of all of us. So we don't have to look anywhere else. It's just there, embedded within the holy names. So we'll start reading today. Now let's talk a little bit about tolerance. What does tolerance mean? Remember from last week? What did we say? Or whatever we may think. What does tolerance mean?
Bear insults and dishonor from others.
Bear insults and dishonor from others. Yes. Why do we have to be tolerant?
For peace.
It's a critical element for peace, because without tolerance, why are we guaranteed not to be peaceful?
Distress or causing others distress or.
But why do we have to be tolerant in this world? Prabhupada makes a very powerful statement at the top of page 540 in the first full paragraph.
Because it's part of material nature.
It is the nature of the material world. There will be obstacles. There will be setbacks. There will be disturbances. That is the nature of this world. Just as the nature of the spiritual world is free from all of that, the nature of this world is to be riddled with. And so, what should we do then? We should tolerate it. Okay? Just like if it's raining outside, there's nothing you can do to stop the rain. You can't stop it. But you can go out with an umbrella and stop the effect of the rain on me. Right? So I can sit in the house and lament it's raining, it's raining, it's raining. Or I can carry on, get an umbrella, maybe a raincoat, some rain shoes, and go out about my day and do what I need to do. So Krishna is saying that one should be tolerant. There are going to be disturbances in the world. There are going to be someone's going to try to knock you down. Somebody's going to try to take what you have. There will be a natural disturbance. It's going to happen. But to be successful, we must persevere. And so if we come to understand they're going to be there, then we stop focusing so much on why they're there and simply figure out, how do I overcome them? How do I not let them disturb my goal? Someone comes and says, hey, you're ugly. Okay. That has nothing to do with my relationship with the Supreme Lord, so you're entitled to your opinion. And move on. And it'll be dishonor. But if I'm hankering for, the honor of so-and-so and all these, I'll never be satisfied. So Krishna is saying, be tolerant. Be tolerant. Don't think that, disturbances in the material world will some way magically go away. No. But what we can do is stop those disturbances from affecting our consciousness, affecting us. Just like you can stop the effect of rain. You can't stop the rain, but you can stop its effect with a nice tool. That is the umbrella. Similarly, we can stop the effect by practicing devotional service, by building strength and tolerance. When we tell our children that, we're in a playground, somebody's teasing you, just ignore it, right? But as adults, we often don't do that. That's the problem, right? We take it to tolerant. Right? Okay, so let's read a few more of these qualities. We'll read maybe 3 or 4 today. So somebody wants to start reading the paragraph what simplicity means? Yeah, everyone.
Simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. As for acceptance of the spiritual master, that is essential, because without the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, one cannot progress in the spiritual science. One should approach the spiritual master with all humility and offer him all services, so that he will be pleased to bestow his blessings upon the disciple. Because a bona fide spiritual master is a representative of Krishna, if he bestows any blessings upon his disciple, that will make the disciple immediately advanced without the disciples following the regulative principles. Or the regulative principles will be easier for one who has served the spiritual master without reservation.
Okay. So there's 2 that are discussed here. The first is simplicity. What does simplicity mean?
It's easier to just go all out and cultivate bhakti than speculate or try to dive through the endless philosophies of the injunctions without one who can teach you the proper meaning of such injunctions.
Yeah, they're almost connected, right? The simplicity and the approaching of the spiritual master. What other things are simplicity?
Doing things without any ulterior motives.
Yeah, doing things without any ulterior motives. Any other, you want to elaborate on that, or any other, what simplicity means? It's an interesting term, right? It's not one we run into a lot, like, hey, be simple. But it's actually very deep. The word simple.
Could you say that, like, for example, even when doing devotional service, you're doing it, but then if there is an expectation of some honor or prestige or seeking some recognition, then that's not a straightforward kind of thing. You having some other kind of motive behind it, so it's not really simple in that sense, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah, that's an aspect of it, that there's an ulterior desire, beyond, and that's a lack of simplicity between maybe us and Krishna. Right? Take it to the context of simplicity amongst each other.
Speak the truth and follow the truth. Sorry, speak the truth and follow, kind of like truth, like.
Yeah.
Kind of aligns with what she's saying too.
The ulterior motives, often in our interactions with others, we carry ulterior motives. We're not straightforward with our intentions, right? I am, speaking to somebody and I'm buttering them up because I want something from them, right? So that's the ulterior motive. But that's not very straightforward, right? That's duplicitous. And we see this a lot, right, in our interactions. Marketing agencies are really good at this, right? They project something in a way that's not very straightforward. They don't really tell the full truth. A good friend of mine, his father had, 3 levels of the truth. It was like the truth, the full truth, and then the absolute, complete truth. And the example is like, a child, goes to school, but then he, skips class and goes out and hangs out with his friends. And he goes home and the father asks, "Did you go to school today?" "Yeah, I went to school today." Is that a truth or is it a lie?
It's the truth, but it's not the whole
Kind
truth.
of an
Is it
illusion
true?
of truth.
It's not
But it's
nothing
not
but
the
the
whole
truth.
truth. That wasn't answering the intent of the question, right? It didn't lie, but it wasn't the full truth, right? So, in our relationships, interactions with people, sometimes we're not very straightforward, simple. Just speak the truth. Yeah, I went to school today, but I also cut class and hang out with my buddies. That's the truth, right? And so, what Prabhupada is explaining here is straightforward, that he can tell the real truth to even who? An enemy. Now that's straightforwardness, right? That is the magic. And, the more we are, practicing this simplicity, it creates a pure existence. And unfortunately, societal norms actually are very counter to this, right? They teach how to obfuscate the truth, how to, manipulate the impressions, how to create a different impression than reality. But in fact, ultimately, it leads to not a good outcome. So this simplicity is very nice quality, and it one that again we can develop through our practice of bhakti. But just being straightforward. Sometimes even in devotional circles and activities, you see, this gamesmanship, this politicking. We'll send somebody else to go say something else and do this, and again, ultimately, Krishna knows. He's seated in all of our hearts. Right? So we should avoid that tendency to enter into those sorts of straightforward, simple. The next one was accepting a spiritual master. So first we'll talk about why and then how. Why do we need to accept a spiritual master?
To approach spiritual knowledge.
Okay, so I'll ask you one more layer. Why do we need a spiritual master to approach spiritual knowledge?
Because we don't know how.
Because we don't know how. And what have we done our entire life when we don't know something?
We ask for help.
Yeah, we go find somebody who does. Now that somebody is Google or Wikipedia, it's kind of scary. But our whole life, when we don't know something, we get a teacher. Somebody tells us, right? And teachers take many different forms. Our parents in our early days, they teach us how to eat, how to dress ourselves, how to take a bath, how to do whatever, right? That's what. And then you go to school, and you have teachers. And then you go to college, and you have teachers. And you go to the workplace, and you have mentors and teachers. It's a lifelong. So how is it that we're going to acquire spiritual knowledge without a teacher? Right? You need a teacher. So Krishna says in the 4th chapter, Tadvini paripatena paripashtena sevaya prakshankiteyanam jnanina tattvadarshina. He says, and if you want transcendental knowledge, approach a bona fide spiritual master. Now, so the why, pretty clear. Krishna says, because they have seen the truth, they can impart it upon you. Just like if your hands are tied behind your back and you want to untie your hands, you have to approach somebody whose own hands are untied, right? If your hands are tied and my hands are tied, we really can't help each other. We're both in the same boat. But if your hands are untied, you can help us. So similarly, we don't approach just anybody. We have to approach someone, not whose hands are untied, of course, but who has seen the truth. Tattva darshina, Krishna says, who has seen and understands this knowledge. So it's a bona fide teacher. Because anybody can say, yeah, I'm a teacher. Right? Just like on Halloween, so many doctors and nurses and Batman and Spider-Man you see running around just in costume. But they're not bona fide, right? So similarly, so anyone can say, I'm a teacher. But Krishna says, a bona fide teacher comes in disciplic succession, bringing this knowledge from Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is our teacher. That's why we're reading his purports. Because he's coming in bona fide disciplic succession. So any knowledge we take, we were just speaking a little earlier, it must come in bona fide disciplic succession. Why? For example, if you want to know what I ate for breakfast today, do any of you know? Yeah, you know. Right? You don't know. Nobody knows. Why? Because none of you were there at the time of my eating breakfast. Right? Now, if I tell you what I ate for breakfast, and you tell Arjun, or you tell Steve, or you go down, then by the time he gets over here, she'll know what I had for breakfast. If one thing is true. And what is that one thing?
What you told him.
Okay, no, assume I tell. But then, what's that?
If it stayed the same.
Stay the same. That's critical. Nobody adds their own ideas. He had this, but he should have had that. No. They just pass the message intact, fully. Then, the knowledge is intact. So ultimately, Krishna has all the answers to our questions. He has all the answers. And he reveals the answers through Guru Parampara. And the Guru doesn't add anything to the message. That is a bona fide Guru. A Guru never claims to be the author of the information. Simply the messenger. Like a postman. A postman delivers the mail, the letters. They don't write the letters.
They don't tell you how they feel about it. They don't.
No. Simply delivered.
Add or subtract.
Right? Add or sub nothing. And that is what a bona fide guru does. A bona fide guru does not claim to be the source of knowledge. They understand, I have received it, and I am passing it on. So one of the principal means to acquire knowledge is to approach a bona fide spiritual master. Final point on this one, what is the mood in which we approach a spiritual master? What kind of mood should we have?
Devotional service.
Devotional service. What else?
Surrender.
Surrender. Why is surrender so important?
Because it'd be like, Prabhupada describes this in the introduction where, if you go to a doctor with an ailment and they prescribe you a medication, you have to take it as the prescription describes. So it's the same thing. The knowledge is that, if you try to interpret it on your own, you tend to embellish it, or like the whole point of that, passing along your breakfast, people have a tendency to add things or take different meanings when the guru will give you the actual meaning as it's supposed to be.
If you're not surrendered, when the instruction comes from the doctor to say, take this medicine, and you're not surrendered, what are you going to do?
Not take it.
Not take it. If you're not going to take it, what was the point of going to the doctor in the first place? No point. You wasted your time and money. So similarly, it says, don't approach a spiritual master unless you're ready to surrender to know. What's the point? What's the point? What's the point to go to the classroom if you're convinced you know more than the teacher? Or that you don't want to learn? Go do something else. Right? So, the mood of surrender means that one goes to the spiritual master inquiring, wanting to learn, understanding, I don't know. It doesn't mean that one goes in a mood of, I am the most foolish person. No. Simply means my mood is to acquire knowledge, to learn. Doesn't mean one follows blindly, one doesn't ask. No, one asks, inquires. But the mood must be there. Otherwise, there's no point. Just like there's no point, unless you surrender to the instruction of the doctor, there's no point to go. Right? So same thing. This mood of surrender to the spiritual master is the key to receiving the knowledge. Because the Guru has the knowledge. The only question is it going to enter my heart or not? And that is up to me. Right? Just like the student who walks into the classroom. If they're convinced they don't want to learn, the teacher, there's no flaw in the teaching, there's a flaw in the recipient, as we were speaking about earlier. Right? So setting the right mood in approaching a spiritual master is very, very powerful. Because when we do, then the knowledge really illuminates the heart. Really shines bright. Okay. Cleanliness. I'll read the next paragraph.
Cleanliness is essential for making advancement in spiritual life. There are two kinds of cleanliness, external and internal. External cleanliness means taking a bath, but the internal cleanliness, one has to think of Krishna always and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This process cleans the accumulated dust of past karma from the mind.
So what are the two types of cleanliness?
External and internal.
Yes. And so what is external cleanliness?
Bathing.
Bathing. So to keep the body clean. Okay? The body's a temple. It's housing the Supreme Lord. Right? So one should, while we know we are not this body, we are detached from the consciousness of the body, one should still keep the body in its proper shape and function. One should maintain it. And what is the second type of cleanliness?
Internal.
Internal. What does that mean?
Cleaning the soul.
Huh?
Cleansing the soul.
Cleansing
Or
the
cleansing
soul.
the heart.
Cleansing the heart. The soul is always pure. It requires no cleansing. But what requires cleansing?
Mind.
Brain.
The mind and the covering of the soul. Okay? The mind is so filthy that if you write down all of your thoughts in the mind from one day and then you showed it to your neighbor, they would never invite you for lunch. Right? The mind has these crazy ideas. And you're like, where did sometimes you ask yourself, where did that come from even, right? It happens. The mind goes to like, oh, it's there. It's there. And where do those thoughts in the mind come from?
Frustration.
What's that?
So I don't know.
Oh,
You
okay.
just come in here and you're like, what? Where did that come from?
Where
I
do
don't
they
know.
come from, right? So, Krishna explains where they come from. They come from our past actions. But not just actions from this lifetime, from many lifetimes prior. So, Just like if we see a movie that really captivates our attention, right? Thoughts of that stay with us for days and weeks. When we're thinking about this or that, and there's that observation of that movie creates impressions in the mind, and they replay themselves at a future time. So similarly, whatever we encounter and experience in the world, it creates impressions in the mind. It's like a giant database. Taking pictures, snap, 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 snap. And it creates all these impressions, right? What is the purpose of billboards on the freeway?
Advertisement.
And what are they trying to do? They're not trying to sell you that product then, right? You're not going to stop and go, what are they trying to do?
Influence the mind.
Make an impression.
Make an impression in the mind. So that at a later date, you'll say, I want that. They know you're not going to buy it while you're driving down I-75, but they're still spending thousands of dollars. Why? To make an impression in the mind, because they know it will come up later. And then you'll try to buy the product or service or whatever it may be. Right? That's marketing.
Yeah.
So the mind has these impressions. Some of them are beautiful and wonderful and nice. And some of them, not so much. So how do we cleanse the mind?
Mahamajna.
It is a potent means of making the mind very clean, the heart very clean. I spoke about it earlier. Now, whatever impurities exist, they're there. It's okay. Nothing to be, everyone has them. Some just do a better job than others of hiding them. They're there. But by the chanting of the holy names, Jaito Darpada Marjanam, it cleanses the mirror of the mind and heart. And so, every time we chant this mantra, we remove these impurities and remove more and more and more. And eventually, all these qualities that we're speaking of, they will shine through. Just like a diamond. When you stick it in the mud and you pull it out, does it shine? Does it sparkle? But is the ability of that diamond to sparkle lost forever? What do we have to do to bring back that sparkle?
Clean it.
Clean it.
Externally.
Remove the mud. Right? Remove the mud. Similarly, the spirit soul is part and parcel of Krishna. It is pure. It is beautiful. It is full of all these amazing qualities. So what do we need to do? Just remove the mud. But it's not like, mud on top. It's instant. And that's the chanting. And that's why this chanting is so powerful. It is the cleansing process. Right? So you want one more? Let's do one more. Next paragraph, let's read.
Steadiness means that one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. Without such determination, one cannot make tangible progress. And self-control means that one should not accept anything which is detrimental to the path of spiritual progress. One should become accustomed to this and reject anything which is against the path of spiritual progress. This is real renunciation. The senses are so strong that they are always anxious to have sense gratification. One should not cater to these demands, which are not necessary. The senses should only be gratified to keep the body fit so that one can discharge his duty in advancing in spiritual life. The most important and uncontrollable sense is the tongue.
Okay, we'll pause there just to cover these two, and then we'll end for today, and we'll pick it up again next week. So steadiness. What does steadiness mean?
Consistent.
Consistent. Have we achieved anything in life without some level of consistency? Some steadiness? Determination? No. So success in spiritual life also requires some steadiness, some determination, some enthusiasm. Right? So it stands to reason that without the determination, it's not possible to make progress. There'll be obstacles. There'll be, deters. I don't want to do this today. I'm tired today. I don't want to. There'll be that, right? Just like when we were studying in school, right? Sometimes I don't want to write this paper right now. I'm just going to wait.
To the last minute.
Wait to procrastinate to the last minute, and then we just slam something out there, and the results are shown, right? So anything we want success in requires some steadiness, also in spiritual life. Now the next one. This is one I'll say boo. What is the next one?
Self-control.
Controlling the senses. Ooh, I don't want to do that. I want to enjoy the senses. So, what does controlling the senses mean? Does it mean I should walk around with my eyes closed? I don't want to see anything. I can control my senses. I'm going to like this. Is that controlling the senses?
No.
What does controlling the senses mean? What do you think it means?
It's just a willful decision to not be taken by any kind of external attractions, the things that might take you off course of your spiritual progress.
Yeah, nicely put. Use the word willful, right? The willpower to resist the urge to take to activities that will take you off the path of spiritual life. Did we need sense control to get through school? We needed it, right? To resist the urge to do X, Y, or Z, right? We needed it. In spiritual life, the resisting the urge to activities that are detrimental for our devotional life, they become very easy when we have faith in the purpose of my spiritual journey. Right? When I'm convinced that this is the path of perfection of life, of finding peace and happiness, that I won't let anything get in the way of it. I'll protect it like anything. So, and the point of sense control means urges are going to come. The urges to do things that we know we shouldn't do. They're going to come. But what is the key? What is the most important thing we should do when those urges come?
Chance.
Huh? Ignore them. Don't act on them. The urges are going to come because it's based on our past conditioning. But with good intelligence, don't do it. Okay, I shouldn't do it. It's not good for me. Right? But one must know and have knowledge of what's good for me and what's not good for me. But once we know what's good for us, what's not good for us, still is it easy? We know unequivocally so many things are bad for us. Yet, due to inability to control the senses, we still do them. Right? I'm suffering from diabetes, but I want to eat that cookie. I'm suffering from, whatever, ailment, heart disease. I shouldn't eat those potato chips. I know they're bad for me. I know I shouldn't do it. Yet, we do it, right? It happens. So, knowledge alone isn't enough. We have to have conviction. So one should be convinced that I don't want to do anything to risk, to jeopardize this greatest fortune I have, to have found a spiritual path to perfection. I don't want to risk it. And so I'll control the urges. Yeah, they're going to be there. I'm not going to risk losing this great fortune I have. So sense control is difficult. But if one takes to the process of Krishna consciousness sincerely, then it becomes very practical and easy actually. Because in spiritual life, Krishna says, don't stop using your senses. Simply engage them in something better. So, yes, we may have to negate from certain activities. But instead we're going to engage in other, more blissful activities. So you don't have to stop seeing things, but look at the beautiful forms of the Lord. Hear His beautiful names and songs and His different teachings. You know, sing and dance with the Lord. Engage your senses, but engage them intelligently. Not in things that are not good for us. And that is the meaning of sense control. Not to stop the senses, but instead to engage them in productive things. Things that will be beneficial for my spiritual journey. So we'll talk more about sense control next week. Today's class, Srila Prabhupada ki. Any questions, comments, discussion?
Well, so I know that seeking and accepting a guru isn't something that should be rushed by any means, but if one sincerely wants to pursue and accept the guru and do everything they can to engage in a spiritual life, but if they still at some point fall short to sense control, how does that work in terms of your sincerity in your spiritual pursuit, and then how does that affect the relationship between the disciple and guru?
Yeah.
Is it like a 3-strike system, or you know what I mean? Like, how does that work when if you're genuinely struggling with sense control and things like that, but you also at the same time just want to go totally forward and engage in bhakti? How does that work out?
So Krishna says in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that even if my devotee makes the most abominable of mistakes, he is considered to be pious, for remains engaged in devotional service. So, Krishna knows we're not going to be perfect, but we must be sincere. And He knows what's in the core of our heart. Right? And so, one should understand that my only means to actually overcome these attractions and these things that I know are detrimental is only by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. I on my own can't make it happen. But by the mercy of my beloved Lord and His representatives, it can happen. So I can't do it on my own, humility, but also confidence. Krishna can make it happen. And so we couple those together. And so, and Krishna will make it happen. See, the Lord fulfills the innermost desires of our heart. Sometimes we externally say, yeah, I want to go to the gym, but internally, no, I don't. Just making a mundane example. But Krishna fulfills the deepest inner desires of our heart. If we really want to make progress in something, to overcome some situation, Krishna will make it happen. And Srila Prabhupada is the living proof of this. When he came here in the 60s, who was he spreading this message to? Those who were largely fully addicted to sense enjoyment. many on the most severe types of drugs.
Hippies.
Yeah, in our era. And they all very easily relinquished them. Not on their own doing,
Right.
but by the power of Krishna. Even the doctors at that time were amazed. Some of the most addictive drugs. Gone. By Krishna consciousness. So, what we should approach a spiritual master when we are convinced of two things. One, that this path of devotional service is the best means of achieving perfection. And two, I have no hope of figuring it out myself. I need help.
To be a seeker of truth.
Then we approach a guru. A guru will accept us immediately. So I could say, when you're ready, rush, run to find shelter of a spiritual master. Because, if we are drowning in an ocean and a boat comes by, you casually, oh, there's a boat on.
I'll wait for the next one.
You would swim as fast as you could without a moment's hesitation. Right?
Yes.
So similarly we do that. And we seek shelter. And the spiritual master will give us initiation when they know we are ready. When they know we are ready. Because once we take initiation, yes, we must be extremely careful to follow the vows we make of the regulator principles. One should be exacting in, because to disobey the order of the spiritual master is the first offense. Not first offense, but main offense, third offense, chanting the holy names of the Lord. So one should be very, very careful. Right? So, but before that step, take shelter, receive mercy. And the Guru will help us purify and make us ready for that next step. So,
How do I do that?
what's that?
How do I do that, Prabhu?
We'll talk.
Another time.
Yes, we'll talk.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes. Any other comments or questions?
Oh, I do actually. It's
Yeah.
not really, is what's your recording going to be available online somewhere so that
Yeah.
I can hear the chants back
Yes.
and
Yes.
read with it again because I
Yes.
see and
Yes.
like to.
It's on Facebook, so we'll get you the link.
Okay.
And these mantras that we're chanting, we chant them 10, 15, 100 times. They'll then become, and they're obviously a little bit different, and they're somewhat phonetic, but there's some pronunciations, and again, just we keep trying, and you'll get it. Don't worry.
I'm sure I will. If I
yeah.
had glasses,
Yes.
then much better. I'm old now and I can't see. So.
No problem. So what we'll do now is we'll chant the holy name. Are there any other questions or comments?
I have just one more random
Yes.
question, but I noticed that when I see the deities, they always seem to be on the southern wall of the building. Is there a reason for that, or is it just coincidence that it's just kind of placement?
It's it's coincidence.
Coincidence, okay.
I mean, when you're constructing a temple from scratch, there are some different, kind of vastu principles that you can follow, but there's also a practical nature. Like when the Fisher Mansion, there was no question of which way.
I see.
It was just going to be based on the configuration of the hall. So
Okay.
more important ultimately is the worship. But if you have the flexibility in constructing from something scratch, and it's not just it should face northeast, west, or south. It's based on a number of different factors, which would say what's the best placement and direction for the deities. But again, like in home settings, like here, this was the most beautiful place in the home for us to place the deities. So we placed them, regardless of which way kind of the facing was, because the idea is to give the Lord the most prominent place.
Mm.
forget it's about, you know,
I
it's
see.
the mood in the heart.
So, okay, I understand. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Shall we chant? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So now we'll chant